succeeded. I review this journal weekly. I do not fight the market. I capitalize on whichever direction the market is going. I take small losses rather than let them become large losses. I do not have to be correct with every trade. I am an expert in one area of trading, whether it be options, one certain stock, or an index. I master every detail particular to those trades. I invest in my success, whether it be stock or an index. Market data. I master every detail particular to those trades upon what the market is doing, rather than what I think it should be doing. I take what the markets give me and am grateful for these gifts. I am flexible and adaptable. I am a great trader. I stick to my trading rules and embrace. I remain calm when I trade. I am flexible. I act decisively. I am safe to take losses. I am successful. Success is my right. I am a profitable trader. I am safe to create wealth. My income is constantly increasing. I am a successful trader. I am an intelligent trader. I have great trading psychology. I believe in myself. I am a trading genius. I am a master at trading. I deserve to make a lot of money. I know the rules to make money and follow the rules to make money. I am focused on how I can make millions in the stock market. I build up my financial wealth through trading. I trade for a short time but win big time. I invest to create passive income streams. I let the market tell me what to trade and when to trade it. I am focused on making money, not being right. I execute flawlessly. I have developed and follow a proven trading system, but realize that one bad trade does not negate the system. I am focused on making money, I will not be right. I believe in my trading strategy completely. I have developed and follow a proven trading system. Emotionally realize that one bad trade does not negate the system. I do not let the whole trading system. I will not be right. I approach trading. I believe in my trading strategy completely. I have following my trading business. Trading system. Emotionally realize that one bad trade does not negate the system. I do not let the whole trading system. I will not be right. I approach trading. I believe in my trading strategy completely. I have following my trading business. I do not fight the market. I capitalize on whichever direction the market is going. I take small losses rather than let them become large losses. I do not have to be correct with every trade. I am an expert in one area of trading, whether it be options, one certain stock, or an index. I master every detail particular to those trades. I invest in my success, whether it be via a book, market data, or a trading coach. I act upon what the market is doing, rather than what I think it should be doing. I take what the markets give me and am grateful for these gifts. I am flexible and adaptable. I am a great trader. I stick to my trading rules. I remain calm when I trade. I act decisively. I am safe to take losses. I am successful. Success is my right. I am a profitable trader. I am safe to create wealth. My income is constantly increasing. I am a successful trader. I am an intelligent trader. I have great trading psychology. I believe in myself. I am a trading genius. I am a master at trading. I deserve to make a lot of money. I know the rules to make money and follow the rules to make money. I am focused on how I can make millions in the stock market. I build up my financial wealth through trading. I trade for a short time but win big time. I invest to create passive income streams. I let the market tell me what to trade and when to trade it. I am focused on making money, not being right. I execute flawlessly. I have developed and follow a proven trading system and realize that one bad break down not negate the system. I am happy to take a profit and I will not be greedy. I believe in my trading strategy completely and wholeheartedly. I am not emotionally affected by my profits or losses. I do not let emotions sway my trade decisions. I approach trading as a business. I am strategic and logical in following my trading business plan. I learn something every day, no matter how small, that gives me a greater trading edge. I keep a trading journal developed and know when and why my analysis not let emotions sway my trade. I review this journal weekly. I approach trading not fight the market. I am strategic and logical on whichever direction the market is going. I take small losses rather than no matter how large loss that gives me a greater trading. I do not have to be correct with every trading journal developed and know when next time my analysis I let trade see whether I trade. I review this one certain stock. I approach trading not fight the master and I am strategic and logical on whichever direction the market is going. Invest in my success. I take small loss a book, market data, or a trading code. Greater trading. I do not have to be correct with market trading journal rather than I connect to my analysis. I let trade see whether I trade. I review this one certain stock. I approach trading not fight the master and I am strategic and logical on whichever direction the market is going. I stick to my trading loss book, market data, main calm trading code. Greater trading. I do not have to decide on the market trading journal. I am saving all the connect to my analysis. I am seeing I review this one certain stock. I approach trading. I am strategic and logical. I am saying the direction the market is going. I stick to my trading loss.
Good morning, traders. Marcus Howard here on Tuesday, August 20th, streaming live on my Nadex account. Looking at some trades this morning. What I'm going to do is probably go through the market open this morning and be on for maybe about an hour or so. So go from about 9:30, maybe 10:30 or 11. Marcus Howard, and I'm going to go through August 20th of the major strategies that I use when I'm trading Nadex. I'm doing this because I got some trades this when I posted in what I'm going to do binary trade. Probably go through the market open this morning. How I got the 13 maybe about an hour to share one of the strategies that I was using at 9:30, maybe 10:30 trading Marcus Howard. I'm going to go like here looking at some major strategies that I use Nasdaq and trade like the market's doing tonight because I got some shopping when I posted in what I'm going to do binary trade. Probably go through the market chat a bit above how I got the 13 maybe high. I want to share one of the strategies that I was using at 30 and then value trading Marcus Howard. I'm going to go like here we can see the same thing here in the strategy that I use Nasdaq and trade like the market's doing tonight because I got some shopping trading on just what I'm going to do binary trade probably slash hard I'm just going to chat a bit above how I got the 13 maybe high. I want to share one of the strategies that I was using at 30 and then value trading Marcus Howard. I'm going to go like here we can see the same thing S&P 500 trading that I use Nasdaq and trade what I'm going to do I'm going to shopping trading on just what I'm going to see binary slash hard I'm just going to chat a bit above how I got to take advantage of the trade there one of the strategies that I was raising 30 so and then value trading Marcus Howard. You are up to like here Nadex S&P 500 trading that I use Nasdaq and trade what I'm going to do that binary trading on just allows you to trade binary trading slash hard I'm just going to chat a bit above how I got to take advantage of the trade there that is now as well as not trade commodities like gold trading Marcus Howard. You are up to like here Nadex as well as S&P 500 trading you can comment about binary what I'm going to do that binary trading just allows you to trade binary slash hard I'm just going to chat a bit above how I got to take advantage of the trade there that is now as well as not trade commodities like gold trading you are up to like here Nadex as well as S&P 500 trading you can comment about binary what I'm going to do strategy binary trading just allows you to trade binary slash hard I'm just going to chat a bit above how I got to take advantage of the trade there that is now as well as not trade commodities like gold trading you are up to like here Nadex as well as S&P 500 trading you can comment about binary what I'm going to do strategy binary trading just allows you to trade purchase out of the market contract one that I'm going to buy to trade sell I can buy a string of commodities you offset purchasing out of the live on this right now one that I'm going to buy I can buy a string of there we are. We're doing our first trade. there we are. So again, if you have any questions while you are here, please feel free to put a question in the chat box. I am kind of monitoring the chat as I go along. And then what I'll also do is I'll open one of these tickets here so that we can track the progress of where this is going in real time. So now if I am looking at where we are here in the RTY, which is the Russell 2000, which is where we are trading this morning, what I will ultimately see is that it seems like the bias this morning from where we are is that, and it's even moving right now, is that we're ultimately going to have a down morning. But one of the big things about trading and the things that I've learned in the almost 2 years that I have been trading is that I don't really ever know what the market's going to do. And so one of the strategies, one of the best strategies that I use is to see that, is there a way that I am able to make a profit no matter which direction the market is moving? And strangles is a great strategy for me to be able to do that. This is one of the best strategies to trade when there is when there is the highest volatility. So when the implied volatility of a particular stock or an index or forex pair is high, is a great time to do a strangle, as well as when the most volatile time of the market is. And so when we're talking indices like the S&P 500, the Russell, those sorts of indices, the most volatile time that I've usually seen has been when the market opens, obviously, and just about when the market closes. But the strangle has seemed to work best at the market open. And so I use this strategy as pretty often, especially when the volatility index is, or the implied volatility is relatively high. And as we can see, the market is already moving just a little bit this morning. We're making a good move down. This is the S&P 500. Let me switch to the actual market that we're trading, which is the Russell. And you can see here, it went below what the closing price was yesterday, which you can see here, which is, it says set, which is 1507.6. And where I actually got this from, or where I'm actually getting this chart from, where you see the gray box, and then actually if I zoom out here, you can see the different numbers like plus 0.5 and negative 0.5. I actually get my charts from a great team called the Binary Trade Group, and every night I get a chart like this sent to me via email, as well as a trade plan video that gives me an idea of where are the likely places that the market is going to go in the morning. It's or during the next day, or even during the next week. And so here, the +5 and then the -5 are saying that, you know, there is a higher statistical probability that it's going to hit one of those two numbers, and it usually does in the morning sessions. So right now we were just trading at where the market closed, and now it's taking a dip down. And I'm not sure if this is going to be the same, because we got just about another 20 minutes before the market opens. But as of right now, it is making that move down. And if I check where we are here, I know the profit and loss says right now that we are up $1,000. But what it's actually doing is because the market has moved down, Nadex, if there isn't a particular market for one of your trades, then it eliminates the entire amount. So I know it says plus 1,000, but we also have to remember that I invested another 6,000 in the 1,000 contracts. So I'm actually down about $5,000 at current. And I know that sounds like a lot of money, but in all honesty, that's maybe about 4 or 5 pips, or like 50 or 60 cents that it just needs to move down, and then I would break even. So if this begins to move, let's say another dollar or another $2 throughout the next half hour, the next hour, or in the next hour and 45 minutes when this contract closes, then what I just need to do is make sure that I manage this trade effectively to be able to maximize the profit. So, I'm just going to continue to monitor and watch this here and see ultimately what is going to happen. So I'm going to take a break here for a second just to monitor the market and see if there are maybe some other opportunities that are present that we can take advantage of. If not, I will hang out here until it is time for the market to open. One of the interesting things that I learned about the different indices, especially the futures, is that they all seem to be pretty correlated. They're not exact, but if we go through and we kind of look, so you notice that from about 8:45 this morning, the RTY is going on a downtrend, and if you notice here, I guess kind of got a spinning top. It's about to go down again. But if you look at all four of the charts, they're all basically doing the same thing. So this is the S&P 500. This is the NASDAQ E-minis. And this is the Dow futures. Like they're all pretty much correlated and doing the same thing. Some move a bit more than others because of volume. Some have different traders in there, but they all seem to move in a similar direction. So I say all that to say that, especially when you're using specific strategies like strangles and iron condors, or if you're watching this and you're wondering, do some of these strategies work in other markets? Then they absolutely do. You can, try a strangle using the S&P 500, and it should work just fine. And right now, I am using this. Obviously, as you can see in the profit and loss section, that the profit and loss is green and not blue. Green means that I'm using the demo account inside of Nadex, which I've been able to amass $13 million. Sometimes I will go and trade with my live account. If I do trade with my live account, then ultimately you would see that it is blue. Um, on the left panel here in my watch list, I just have all of the vehicles that you can trade on Nadex. Right now, I am trading the I call it the Rusty, but the Russell 2000. And so in the bottom left chart here, I have the real time value, which allows me to see not just. So if you look at, I'll try to explain here. So if you look at the volume down here at the bottom, which has the green, the gray, and the red, this tells you the amount or the total volume of trades, as well as whether the candle is positive or negative, which is useful, but it's usually incomplete in terms of the data that it gives you. And so I do look at this quick chart, which tells you the volume, and it lets you see just how much green volume there is, or just how much red volume there is. So if we look here at the previous ones, you can kind of go in here in real time and you can see, obviously which one was a down day, which one was an up day, and then some of them that kind of chop between going up and down. And you can kind of see it in the real time volume. You're not going to get that in this volume box down here at the bottom, but I am able to see it in the left, and it has been helpful for me in terms of day trading. Do I have all the answers? No, but I have been pretty successful so far, and the things that I've been doing have been working. So ultimately, I'm going to stick with it until I find something better that I can test and that can replace the method that I'm currently using now. But for right now, this one works, and we're just about 10 minutes or so now before the market opens. Right now, if we're looking at the bias, it would seem like that this morning we are going to have a down morning session in the indices, but then I could be absolutely wrong. The bell could open and things could shoot. You know, things the bulls can take over and the price can go straight up. I never really know ultimately how it's going to go, but I try to make the best informed decisions based on just kind of where I am now. So, just about 10 more minutes before the market opens, I'm going to continue to monitor uh, the different indices to see if there are some additional opportunities, and I'll be back in just a second. So one of the questions that I'm getting here live is what indicators am I using? And for the most part, I don't use any like premium indicators or crazy indicators. In fact, down here at the bottom, I just use a Fisher transformer, which gives me a good idea of whether or not a particular vehicle that I'm looking at is overbought or oversold. Overbought means that there is a higher probability that the price is going to end up going down. And if it is overbought, it's going down. Oversold, that means it's probably going to end up going up. And so if we look now here down at this Fisher transformer, there are, let's see if I can highlight it. There are a couple of areas here where the arrows are it's down here at the bottom, which means it is oversold, which means there could be an instance where it's going to go up, but I don't necessarily know. Usually so from what I've gathered, the white arrow are retail traders, sorry, which is folks like you and I, folks who have accounts of, let's say, less than $100,000 or so, and use some of the major brokers. The blue one and the green one are mutual funds, or I'm sorry, not mutual funds, but brokerage accounts and things like that. Folks that do higher volumes. So that's the TD Ameritrades and those sorts of companies are in that area. And then there's this purple one here. And that purple one usually for me indicates institutional investors. So bigger money that's moving through the market. And so a lot of times you'll see that the yellow arrow or the green arrow, the blue arrow, I'm sorry. So the white arrow or the blue arrow are the ones that can a lot of times give you a false positive because as retail traders, some of the statistics are crazy. Like most of the time, 90% or more of retail traders lose money. And so the direction that you see that one going may not be the indication. So a lot of times before I make a real move or before I can validate a move, I wait for either the green, but especially the purple arrow to change before I know that there's a change in the trend or even the direction that a particular candle is going to go. And so in terms of indicators, I do pretty much use the Fisher transformer. I may put an RSI indicator on here as well, because when I first started trading, I looked a lot into Larry Williams, who was one of the people that started the stochastic. And so I do use that on occasion. And also in this bottom left here, I use the real-time just kind of volume chart, which gives me a good idea of the trend for the morning. It may not necessarily tell me how far a market is going to move. With that, you'll use, let's say, the market maker move or the implied volatility. But it does give you an indication of what the trend is for a particular session. And so I use those as my main indicators. I don't really do much else. I have tested some other ones like MACD and those sorts of things, and they have worked. They have just been pretty inconsistent. And, every trader has their own setup, obviously, their own indicators and the things that make them feel comfortable. But this is just the one that's been comfortable for me. And just using the Fisher transformer and volume, I've been able to grow this Nadex account to $13 million. So something's working. But of course, I'm always open for suggestions. So if there's something else that you all know that works better, I am definitely all ears. So we've got just about 5 minutes now before the market opens. And I like this trading chart platform that I use, which is ThinkorSwim, because not only does it give you great real-time data with all of the indicators that I like, it's laid out great, but it has this little countdown in the morning of when the market's going to open. So you see now it's at like 3 minutes and some change right here at the top where I'm pointing, as well as it does the same thing when the market closes. So I don't know about you, but sometimes I get that rush in the morning when I'm counting down, like I'm excited for the market open. I'm excited for an opportunity to make some trades, manage some trades. and see if I can continue to learn. For me, it's it's interesting and it's fun when you have good days and you are making money. But as we all know, when you are investing in the markets, you can be up one day, you can be down the next. So if you are really excited about your gains and then get really bummed about your losses, then it's going to make for an emotional roller coaster, which can lead to trouble. And so I just love the process that we go through every day, every morning, every night of doing the trading, and just willing to have the opportunity to learn. And so I really do appreciate this ThinkorSwim platform because it's been able to increase my learning curve tenfold, as well as the BTG charts, which are the charts that I get every night, which gives me the trade plan that I use and I execute on a daily basis. So, and if you do want to take advantage of the charts where you get, a good idea of where the market will possibly move, and I mean it's pretty accurate. A lot of times, I'm surprised how, some of their predictions actually go almost to the exact tick. They do have a 14-day trial. I have put the link in the description. I do not get any sort of commission or anything for it. I just really believe in their charts, and I want to help them as best as I can. So it's a 14-day trial, so you can try it out for free, see if this helps your trading in some way. If it does, you can keep going. If it doesn't, then you can just kind of continue learning and move on to the next thing. So here we go. Right now, I'm actually going to switch because I have the buy ticket open. I'm going to open up this sell ticket here, which is the one that actually has some action on it. So we'll be able to follow this one in real time. Right now, it's saying that we are at about even, which is great. Before the market opens, we are just about even. So what that means is now the current market is at 1506 dot four. So if the market moves down another 60 cents, actually because of the fees, if it moves down another 80 cents, then I am at break even. So if it goes down $1 in the next hour and a half, um, then I've made $2,000 essentially. And then you just kind of multiply that. If it goes down $2, there's more. And so we'll just kind of follow this real time and see where we are in the trade. And then I think this will be the only trade. See, here we go. It just moved down and now I'm up $8,000. So at this point, I am at break even. And the market literally just opened. So we are going to monitor this trade in real time and we're going to see ultimately how this is going. So one of the things that I look at in the morning, and I'm going to actually zoom in here on the volume of the RTY. So now I'm at the top. I'm sorry, I'm at the bottom left of the screen here. It's kind of hard to see, so I'll just kind of see if I can zoom in here. But the first kind of volume candle is down, which is a good indicator. And then as you notice, the actual candle for the day is down as well for this. And I'm using a 5-minute candle. I usually look at the 5-minute candle when I'm day trading. I will switch when I'm doing my trade analysis, like you'll see here. I will switch and look at the 4-hour candle, which gives me an idea or a bird's eye view of what may ultimately happen on the day. And as we can see, it looks like not necessarily that we're oversold, but it does seem like we are just kind of in a choppy area here, or equilibrium, with the space to ultimately be able to kind of move more to the downside. So that's ultimately what the bias was for today. And that seems to be the direction that the market is moving this morning. If we look at again So the purple arrow here, it kind of comes and it kind of disappears. Right now it's saying that it's oversold, so it may end up going up, which could be the case. And if that is the case, then we'll see that these prices are going to change relatively quickly. But right now I'm just kind of monitoring, seeing ultimately what will end up happening here. So one of the interesting things about Nadex, they do binaries, which I won't really get into today because I'm in a spread trade. So I will talk about spreads. And spreads are that you can buy or sell a particular contract, and then every tick that it goes either for you or against you, it will move up whatever the increment is. So right now, I am 11 ticks or now 12 ticks in the positive, and since I have 1,000 contracts, then that means I get $12,000. So if I only had one contract, you can see that every tick that it moves in my direction, I get $1. But it's not unlimited. So there is a maximum, and the maximum you can see in the area here for the contract position. So in the one that we're in now that we have sold, the maximum amount that I can make actually comes when I hit 1497. So right now we're trading at 1502. So if it goes to, it's 1497.5. So if it goes down to 1497.4 or 1496, there is a cap on how much ultimately I'll be able to make. And you can see that maximum cap. I think we bought this contract at $6 and we bought 1,000 of them. So the most that I can make is an additional 64, which will bring me down to 1497.5. Right now, this has moved about 18-20 pips in our direction, so I am up about $18,000. I could get out of this trade right now, but I actually do have a sneaking suspicion, just looking at everything else, that the market may move down a little more. So what I usually end up doing is looking to take profit at some of these statistical probability areas. So looking down here at 1498.3, I'd probably go somewhere near here, which is the negative 0.5. It may reach there, it may not. Because I'm already in the profit, if I'm already in the green, if I see that it starts to reverse on me, and it starts to reverse on me a lot, then ultimately I will just go ahead and exit the trade. But right now I'm feeling relatively comfortable that our bias for this morning is correct. And that these next few candles are going to keep ultimately going down. So if I were to say my first take profit area would probably be about 1,500. And depending on how big some of these candles are, I may try to go down to the 1498.3. But ultimately we shall see. I mean, not bad so far that we are able to bank about $16,000. So remember, we invested $6, and so at $17,000, we're actually currently up $10,000. Here we go. My ultimate suspicion was correct. And if we look down at the bottom at our Fisher transformer, you'll see that all of the arrows, for the most part, are pointing that there's going to be that we're going to continue to sell. The purple one is there, which is the institutional one. The blue one and the white one are all pointing down. That doesn't mean that the price is going to go down. Obviously, the market can do whatever it wants. But it is a good indicator that that could be the case. See, a prime example here is, although all the arrows are pointing down, there were instances in which that individual candle went up and was green. But if we look at the volume of the real-time value, we'll see that it was a nice red candle down, and then the second continuation candle went lower than the one before, but there is a tail down at the bottom, which means there is some buying power that is there. So at any moment, this could possibly reverse and go back up in the positive direction. But I will stick to my bias this morning. Stick to where my take profit targets are, and just patiently wait for it to get there. All told, we're up $14,000 right now, but I'm actually trading the max position just because my account is so large in Nadex that in order for me to risk 5% of my account, which is usually my method, if I enter a trade, I'm not going to risk any more than 5% of my individual account on any given trade. In order to do that, I do have to take the maximum number of positions. And so that's why you'll see that I can quickly grow in 5 or 10 minutes to my account growing 18,000, 20,000, 25,000. But if this was one contract, instead of it being 18,000, I would be up $18 at the moment and continuing to move. So just to get some perspective in terms of where we are. Price has stopped 2 times on this 1501, which could be an indication with the green candle that it may go in a different direction, like it may end up going back up towards the settlement amount. If we monitor the other markets here, see, are they all doing something similar? So the S&P 500 is looking to figure out what it's going to do. The Nasdaq futures are doing something very similar. The Dow minis are not. Dow minis are actually continuing their move down. So, and if you notice, going back to RTY is now going and doing something similar. So it's so interesting just how these markets are correlated. You can look at one of the four indices, and usually it's an indication of what the other ones are doing. It's not exact. It's not completely accurate, but it does get pretty close. So like I said, right now I am in a live strangle trade on Nadex. Strangle being that I have bought 2 out of the money contracts of the same vehicle for a discounted price, with the idea being that the market moves in one of the directions enough that offsets the investment that I've made in the other one, and that I can ultimately make a profit. So I have invested about $16,000 in this trade with the fees that Nadex takes. And right now, my current profit and loss is $26,000, and so I am up about $9,000 currently. I'm in the Russell 2000, which this morning is continuing its move to the downside. Again, I'm looking to take or exit the trade at about 1500. It may go lower. It could go as low as this negative 0.5, which is 1498. But I've also seen from the years that I've been doing this that a lot of times the market likes round numbers. And so although it's the negative 0.5 that I get from my chart is at 1498, I think I'm going to ultimately exit at 1500. Could I continue to go? Yes. But that's, for me, honestly, that's fear of missing out. And so there have been plenty of times in which I've decided I wanted to stay in a trade because I thought it can go just a little bit lower just for it to reverse on me and I end up losing money. So I don't want that to happen. I actually picked that up from Larry Williams when I started trading in the beginning. And I kind of pretty much try and stick to that. And then Larry had a great perspective on it. He said, okay, well, let's say you go to your take profit point and it continues to go past it, which means you could have made more profit. Well, instead of getting upset with yourself, you can just look at it like you feel happy that you have given someone else an opportunity to make money. And that's just that. So I'm just kind of holding off here. It's at 1501. Once it gets down to about 1500, I will ultimately go and I will exit this trade. And remember, again, it may never actually go down to 1500. That is what my goal is. But the market is going to ultimately end up doing what it wants. As frustrating as that is, it is the absolute truth. So if you look here, you notice that the S&P 500 has just hit the negative 0.5 deviation and it kind of bounced off it. So usually if it hits it and it reverses in the opposite direction, a lot of times you're going to see that the price is going to move a bit more. So you may see a green candle after this. And because these different indices are correlated, that may mean that we see that the Russell 2000, it may do the same thing even before it gets to our profit target, which is 1500. And so I like to monitor what the S&P 500 does and the levels of the S&P 500 on top of whatever other trade indice I may be in. Because it can give you some indication of what's happening. So if we look at here, it's going to go back again and it's going to touch its negative 0.5 deviation. Let's see if it's going to actually go through it or bounce off of it again. So right before it kind of bounced off, which may give you an indication that there is some support there. Whether or not it's going to break through, I am not completely sure. So going back to our chart, which is the Russell 2000, ours is kind of doing the same thing. Again, it's not in the same place, but you notice it hits a certain price level and it bounces off of it twice. And here, looking at the real-time volume of the Russell 2000, typically there is a strong confirmation in either direction for whether it's going to be a down session or an up session. The fact that I'm seeing a red arrow, then a green arrow, the red arrow, and a green arrow typically means that we're going to have a choppy morning. May have a morning V. We may have what may be a more traditional wave pattern. So that's leading me to believe that we're not going to have too far down of a morning. So I may get back down to where we were, which is at 1,507 cents, 1,508 cents, and I may end up ultimately taking profit there instead of waiting for it to go down to 1,500 and definitely maybe not to 1,498. But we'll see ultimately how this trade goes. We're monitoring this trade live in real time. Still up about $6,000 or $7,000 on the morning. Real-time question that I'm getting is how much do you typically make? That honestly varies depending on how much risk I'm ultimately ended up putting in. Like that, that's a tough question to answer. But on this 13 million account, let's say a lot of times I'll go and maybe in the future I may show inside of my trade journal, but on average maybe 45 to 75,000 at least now on this bigger account. Which if this was a smaller account, that's like $50 to $75 a day if I was only trading one contract. So if I was risking 10 contracts, then it would be 570 and so on and so forth. All right, so there's the move now. It's at 1500.4. Red candle, just another 40 cents, and then it's going to hit our take profit number, and then we can exit this trade. At 31,000. So let's see if we take a look at the ticket. Ticket says we can buy back now at 1501. Actually, let's see if we can put in a take profit order here at 1500, although this is not going to completely be the same. Because in order for this to be 1500, it actually has to go lower. It has to go similar to, let's say, the 1498. So you notice that actually it's pretty close. Again, we're still having the trend is down. The trend is continuing down on our chart. And the trend is down on the Fisher transformer. Which is giving us a good indication that we're going in the right direction. Now, again, this could be a completely different trade session this morning if, because we're using a strangle, that the price today ended up rising instead of falling. We would be having a completely different conversation. That's one of the reasons why I really like a strangle, and especially strangle for beginner traders who are using Nadex, who may not have as much experience with using the platform and trading and those sorts of things. It allows you the opportunity in a demo account. I am not making any sort of recommendation for live trades using your real money. I'm talking specifically about a demo account. This is for entertainment purposes only and educational purposes for you to learn how to begin to manage trades. So one of the reasons why I like using strangles, especially for beginners and intermediates that are using Nadex, is it gives you the opportunity to be inside of trades more often than not, so you can begin to learn not only how to enter and exit trades, but trade management in the middle pieces, which is where most of the money is made ultimately. And so because I picked a trade in both directions, didn't matter which direction the market headed this morning, there was still going to be an opportunity for me to make some sort of profit, which is great. And right now, we're sitting at about 29,000. So with 12,000 invested, 14,000 with the fees, we're up $17,000 right now in this trade account. I'll go back and look at the S&P. The S&P has gone below the 0.5 deviation, and now it's a green candle. So we'll see if this negative 0.5 deviation is now going to serve as resistance, meaning that it won't go above it, or whether or not it's going to break through that line, which is going to tell us a lot about kind of how the rest of the session is going to go. Again, been in this trade for a little bit over 20 minutes, 23 minutes. It expires at 11, so it expires in another hour. I don't plan on being in the trade that long, but I may ultimately end up going to expiration. One of the things that now that this account has grown a bit larger and I've learned more, one of the things that I want to begin testing out is seeing with these sorts of strangles specifically, what would happen if I just held all these positions to expiration? Will you end up making more money over the long run, or do you end up making less than me being in the trade, figuring out where's the high, the low, the tops, and the bottoms? I think on any given day I can possibly beat, but over the long run, whether or not I'd be able to beat the market in terms of what it's doing, I'm not completely sure. Again, I'm at the stage now where I've done pretty well with this account, but that is something that I do want to test, whether or not you will be able to beat lay market. And there goes the Rusty. It has gone back in the opposite direction on us, so now we're back at 1502. If it does break above the candle that it was before, so that's like 1503.3, that may be an indication that we may have some sort of reversal, and that when we tap that 1500, that was it, which it is doing. So this may be an indication that it's time for us to so you notice the reverse there. Look at that. So you notice here, just having a conversation with you all, it tapped that 1500, which is what we said, that nice round number, and then you notice it reversed and just shot back in the opposite direction. So we were right in that regard. And look, it happened just like we said it. And then there's a confirmation of the green arrow here in the real-time value chart. And then all the arrows, the white arrow, the blue arrow, the green arrow, and the purple arrow are all there. Thing that is oversold, and it's time to move in the opposite direction. That does not mean also that it may not reverse and go back down at some point, or it may continue to rise. We're not exactly sure. But I know, just having this conversation with you all and checking on the stream, that I missed it. I missed the exit. So I'm just going to continue to watch and monitor here. Again, that moved me back down to about break even. So even though I missed the exit for profit, I still have not lost. I am still currently at about break even. And it may ultimately continue to rise. It's one of the things about doing these sorts of trades live. Typically, I'm just sitting looking at the particular chart and not looking at anything else. So I'm really focused. But that's just a great testimony of splitting attention, and you're offered, I mean, it's maybe 15, 20 seconds that we were away checking on something else, and then it reversed on you just that quickly. I'm not too worried, and even with this, I'm risking, I mean, $12,000 is less than 1% of my total account balance. So even if this trade reverses on us, which it could do, we live to fight another day. And that really does help with the emotions. If you put on too much risk at one time and you get emotionally involved, if it swings against you, it could really ruin your day. Now, don't get me wrong, I don't like losing. I do not like losing. But if I do lose, I would much rather lose small and win big than to lose big at any time. And I also have a suspicion that is reacting off of this around 1500 number, but that's not like we shall see. Whether or not it goes down. But one of the things that I also want to, especially when we're talking spreads, let me see if I can open up the spread one. Even though the price went down to 1500 on the chart, it never actually hit 1500 here on the buyback because there's a difference. So you notice that now it's trading at 1504, but the buyback is at 1503. And so in order for this number to the buyback that we have to actually hit 1500, it would actually have to be lower than 1500 on the ThinkorSwim chart or whatever chart you're using. So you would have to look at it as, let's say it's 1498 or 1499.2 or something like that before it actually hits the 1500. So it has to move a little bit past what you may have in as your take profit. Still this morning trading at about break even. And just going to continue to watch what happens. So here we at the S&P. It's shot above our resistance level. Well, that 0.5, it isn't serving as support or resistance of anything right now. It's just kind of a price magnet where people are going to see what the direction they want to go. And here it's going back below this negative 0.5, which means that the Russell may end up doing something similar. But if we see this S&P 500, this slash ES start to shoot back up, then the chances are that the Russell is going to do the same thing. So we're just kind of monitoring what's going on here. the last hour to see what this final move is going to be. Usually from 10 o'clock to 11, there is a direction that it goes, and then a lot of times that direction reverses from 11 to 12. So sometimes I may get into a trade from, let's say, 9 to 11, but then we'll also be in the trade for another hour because I can see if there's change control and that the entire move that was made in that first session actually ends up reversing. So price is moving back down, but I don't know if I want to continue to try to hold on to this trade at this point. I may just leave it because I was having this because I missed the exit, and I really think that it may continue to go back up, which means this may end up being a loss. I could exit this trade right now at 6,000, and because I only invested 6,000, I would be pretty much break even minus the fees. And if I waited to say 9,000, so if I took the ticket there and here, 3, that would be it. I'm going to give myself 10 more seconds to decide whether or not I'm going to stay in this trade. 10. Yeah, this trade it's a little, was having the conversation. I missed the 1500. I could live to trade another day. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drop this now to 1500. I'm at 1503, which would be my break-even point minus the fees. And then I will look for another trade opportunity. Here it is. It's at 1503.1. If I put in my take profit order, $15.03. There it is. It's starting to take. So it only took 30 of those contracts because I'm trading at 1,000, so that makes sense. It took 30 of those contracts and it shot back up. And now it's back at 1302, 1301. It's another green candle. The Fisher transformer is saying that things are going to continue moving. So what I think I may do, I may just end up taking a small. Now it's back at 1305, 1306. So to attempt it, one of the things about trading with larger accounts is that sometimes even that the liquidity isn't there. So there isn't enough contracts for you to be able to get ultimately in and out of a trade. So what ended up happening was it ended up taking 30 of the contracts at 1503, and then it shot up to like 1507, 1508 because that was the next available contract that was there. And there was no more liquidity at that 1503. And so even if the price was still there inside of Nadex, the liquidity wasn't available. So we had it right. We had it sitting in 30 contracts, and it just shot up to 1503.9.8. If I was really panicking, I would go here for a small loss. I'm not necessarily panicking, nor should you ever. But the green arrows are really reversing on us here. The green candles. So here again, just monitoring the trade. The S&P has gone down to that 0.5 deviation level and has reacted off of it. Again, still trading at a profit on this one contract, being up about $4,000. But again, we invested $6 in the other, so technically we're down $2,000. Or again, because I'm trading the maximum that Nadex allows me to trade, which is 1,000 contracts. If you were to put this into perspective, we're down about $1 right now. So in the grand scheme of things, still having a pretty okay morning. $15.03.3. So we need to move down another 2 or 3 pips. 3 pips exactly now. 2 pips. So we should see in the next maybe 10 or 15 seconds. If the market continues to do what it wants to do, or what it's doing now, we should be exiting this trade in the next 30 seconds or so. Or it could continue to reverse, and then it doesn't. It has been known to happen. So again, I already have the working order in, so I am not doing anything physically in real time. I am just basically watching the screen as you are. Now I've seen it hit 1503.1 twice, but not go down to 1503 with a round number. So what I could possibly do is adjust this working order to go up 1 pip. And then that would probably get me out of the trade, and I would end up losing, in the grand scheme of things, the $1 on a fee. Let's see. Did that ticket disappear? Okay, let me open this ticket back up. It's not this one. Let me just open this working order ticket. It's really interesting. I will amend this order to make it 1503.1. It's really interesting as I'm doing this now live in a trade room. Just how much longer it takes to make a decision, because I have to verbalize it first so that I can say it to the live stream, as opposed to a lot of times when I'm in the trading room, I'm not really talking at all. And I'm also not even thinking as much. I'm reacting in real time to kind of what's going on. So I'm noticing this process is a bit slower, which is perfectly fine. Again, I'm inside of a demo account, not risking much even in the grand scheme of my demo accounts. And this is an opportunity for me to be able to learn, to grow, to be able to get better at this, which is interesting. So like as I try to do this again tomorrow, possibly, things will go and get better. A live question that's coming in right now is, do I trade profitably every day? Like, do I make a profit every day? Absolutely not. I make profit more often than not, both in my demo account and in my live account. By no means do I make profit every day. but then I also never risk more than 5% of my account at any given time. So that means, just on some simple math, what's that? I would have to lose 20 trades in a row to blow up my account. Or to go back down to zero, and that's never happened to me. I don't think I've ever lost more than maybe 3 or 4 trades in a row. And then, especially if I'm using a strategy like a strangle, the profit multiplier is so much higher. Again, this morning is not the best example, and also this morning, this morning is not the best example. But when you see another one where we come in here and you'll see that, we may purchase a contract for, let's say, anywhere between $6 to $10, and it jumps up to $45, maybe $50, and you'll see just how well this strategy works. It doesn't work all the time, obviously, because nothing is 100%. But it does work really well. Okay, so then we're going back down here. Let me just monitor this thing in real time. So we're going back. It's back down to 1304. It's done this twice. I don't know if it's going to do it a third time. Lightning usually doesn't strike 3 times. And so again, 5,802 is at 3. So I may adjust this working order and just take profit at 1503. I've seen it go to 1503. I've seen it go to 1501. 1502, 1503. See if I tear off this ticket. It just took more. It just took 30 more, and then it jumped back up. So this does happen sometimes. If you look, hold on, and I'll open it up here so you can see. If you look at the options chain, if you look at the bid size for on the left side, you'll notice that some are at 100. This is my 140. So that's why that number is so high. But then you notice that the other one is 30. So it's taking only 30 contracts at a time, when typically it may take 100 contracts at a time. And so that's why ultimately I'm having so much difficulty getting out of this trade this morning, because I'm trading at the maximum amount that you can trade. And so if you were trading, let's say, with 1 contract, 2 contracts, 5 contracts, it may not be so difficult for you to get out of a trade. 20 contracts, even 100 contracts, a lot of times you'll be fine. And you'll be able to get out of a trade with no problems. But trading with such a large account, there are instances where it's difficult for me, just because there isn't enough liquidity to be able to get out of a trade. And I'm kind of glad this is happening, so that you can see these sorts of things. I've never seen, me personally, someone online, whether it be on YouTube or live streaming, with a large enough account for you to see some of these other things that occur inside of Nadex. Because Nadex isn't all unicorns and rainbows, trust me. Okay, so there it is. It took another 30 contracts. And you notice when it takes 30 contracts, it jumps back up to 1308, somewhere around there, because that's the next available contract amount. So with that said, again, I know this isn't the peachiest of examples, but I'm not even exactly sure if I'm going to be able to completely get out of this trade, even at the amount that I want to get out of it for. And this is just simply a break even, just because the amount is so high. This happens rarely. I mean, 1 time out of maybe 20, something like this occurs, where there isn't enough liquidity for me to be able to even get out of a trade to break even. A lot of times I can just scoop up the 1,000 contracts and be done with it. See, it's still doing it here. It took another 30 contracts, so now we're at 880. And if at any point this decides it wants to reverse and go back up, then some of these contracts will be lost. I go back and look at the S&P. The S&P is looking like it wants to reverse. Again, on the Fisher Transformer, we have a retail trader and a fund platform. The blue one I attribute to like TD Ameritrade or some of the other kind of bigger trading software places. Those are the ones there. The green ones are, investment banks, mutual funds sometimes. Then that purple one is the bigger institutional investors. It's like right now, the retail traders are looking to still want to reverse, but I think this is going to continue to rise this morning. So 1304, 13.3. What's the 13.3? If I close this ticket and open it back up at the current amount, which is 880, tear off a ticket, it's still trading at the contract sizes are still at 30. So that's not going to help us because it's only going to take 30 contracts at a time. So even if I do amend this order, which I will, to 1503.2, it's still only going to take 30 contracts at a time. So unless RTY has a few red candles, like if it continues to move down back towards the negative 0.5 of 1498, I may end up taking a loss of about half of what I invested. This morning, only because there wasn't enough liquidity for me to be able to get out of this particular trade. Now, again, anything could change. The market is going to continue to do what it wants to do. But it's a good example. There's about 40 or so minutes left on this contract. We had a nice move down at the open. We wanted to get it down to about 1500 where we were going to take profit. I mean, it hit 1500 to the exact tick. If you notice right here to the exact tick, it went to 1500. And then it responded off that 1500 number and went back up. And during that time, I was having a conversation with you all and monitoring the chat. So I missed that moment. But even still, because we're trading at 1,000 contracts with such a large Nadex account, there wasn't even enough liquidity to be able to get out. Like if you notice here, even the offer size. So all of the other ones have an offer size. Here, I'll put this back up so you can see it. I'm just kind of noticing it now. So if you notice now on the right side, because I sold that bottom contract, the bottom one on the right, all the other offer sizes are 100, except the one that we're in that we want to get out of, and that has 30 at a time. I don't know why. I don't want to attribute any sort of reason to why that may be, but all the other ones are 100, except the one that we need to get out of, which is sitting at 30. So what if I even deleted my working order? Does that make any change to the offer size of this one here? It doesn't. All right, so let's see what we can do to ultimately get out of this trade. So if I tear off this ticket here, and it's trading now at 1304, if I do 880 for 1304, yeah, it just takes 30 contracts at a time. This doesn't typically happen. Now look, it's trading back at 100 contracts. But for 14, and not for the number that we're going for. 1504. trading at 1504 back to 100 contracts. When we were at 1503, 02, 1503.5, it wasn't at 100 contracts. So I'll be interested to see, with about 38 minutes left in this trade, whether or not we'll even be able to get out of it with enough liquidity inside of Nadex, which I think is really interesting. It's a great case study and a great example for you to see that even if you get it right, like even if you get the direction right with larger accounts, and you've moved in the right direction, it may not be enough if there isn't enough liquidity inside of Nadex to even let you out of the trade. Again, trading with smaller accounts where you're doing, 1 to 25, 25 to 50, you won't have to worry about such things. 50 to 100, a lot of times you don't have to worry about such things. 100 and higher, 250 and higher, you may run into it sometimes, but I do run into it, let's say 1 out of 20 times when I'm able to do the maximum. So yes, this may be an instance where I'm stuck in this trade because there isn't enough liquidity for me to be able to get out of it until the market closes. And so when it closes in about 35 or so minutes, then whatever the difference is, I ultimately be able to take. But the huge risk there is if this reverses and it continues to go back up, like if it moves maybe towards what it settled at yesterday, which is 1507.6, then I'm ultimately going to end up, that contract is going to end up expiring at 0 and not whatever the difference is. So we'll just ultimately see. We'll monitor this in real time. We'll see if I can use some Moxie to get myself out of this trade. Okay, so notice, right, it went down to 1305, 15, I'm sorry, not 13, 1503.4. And notice what the contract did. Hold on, let me pull it back up here so you can see it. Notice what the contract size went back to. It's now at the offer size is now 30. Why would it change? If it was at 1504, it was at 100, but it just went down 4 pips, 6 pips now, and the contract size changed to 30. Or the offer size, sorry. Not sure why it does that. But here at 1306, it's at 100. Oh, wait a minute, 1503. So I should be able to get us out of this trade. So let me look here. 150, ours is at 2. So now 4, it's at 100. There it is. So there we are. It just took our trade. Now it's trading at 1503.1. But now the offer size is kind of going back to 100, and that's gotten us out of the trade. So now if we look here, it's continuing to move down. I'm not exactly sure where it's going to continue to go. It may go back and touch that 1500 again. Because it hasn't moved that much, it bounced off that 1500 twice. Some ideas that I may have for this next trade, because again, I'm just at about break even with that first trade that I took. I may have lost about $1 or $2 on the fees, so that means I'm about down $1,000, maybe $2,000 on the day. Which again, if you're trading one contract, it's just $1 or $2. But I'm trading the maximum. What I will monitor and end up doing next, maybe when I'm off stream, because I've already been doing this for about an hour and some change, is I will wait until it gets down to this negative 0.5. So if it gets down at some point to this 1498.3, what I'll end up doing is buying another contract. I may end up buying an at the money contract, an at the money contract, a binary for, say $50 or whatever the case is. So a pretty much even trade, with the hope that it's not going to end up going too much further below that 1498, which, I mean, indication of it not being so is it, bounced off that 1500 and went back up. So I have a suspicion that it's going to do the same thing. But if it doesn't get down to that point, then I won't make that trade. There's always tomorrow. There's always another trading day. There's no point in trying to force or risk anything. So that is the trading session today for Tuesday, August 20th. Again, we were at break even in total for the strangle trade minus the fees. So we lost $1 or $2 per $1 per contract on the fee. So I'm down about $1,000 total on this day because the fees really do kill you, but they're not worse than some of the other brokerages that are around. Nadex is actually pretty good with that in terms of the fairness of their fees. So what I'm going to do now is just enter this particular trade inside the trade journal, as well as take pictures of this trade and put it in the private trade group that I am a part of. So thanks for watching, and I will see you again tomorrow. Happy trading.